Welcome to The White Space, a podcast where we talk about data centers in a simple and practical way.
Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive. This is part of the White Space Piso Blanco podcast. And, this is actually our 9th deep dive together. We're just, absolutely thrilled your support on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's been incredible seeing the White Space podcast grow like this. Honestly, thank you for that leap of faith. It means a lot. Okay, before we jump in, a massive thank you is needed for our sponsors, Series Tech and Noxtel. They make these deep dives possible. And you can find all their links right there in the description. All right, so today we're looking at tech, yes, but also the story behind it. We're tracing the journey of two giants, Schneider Electric and APC, and exploring how they joined forces to tackle, a huge challenge in enterprise data centers. Cooling. It's about history, convergence, and the cool stuff. Literally.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, isn't it? How these two, very different paths came together. They ended up offering these really complete solutions for critical infrastructure. We'll look at Schneider Electric, from way back in the 19th century, iron and steel, all the way to digital transformation now, and then APC's huge role in power protection, especially their UPS systems, uninterruptible power supplies, and how all that history plays into what's needed for enterprise data centers today.
Okay, let's start with Schneider Electric then. Their roots go back to 1836. Is that right? That's nearly 2 centuries.
That's right, 1836. It started in Burgundy, France. Two brothers, Adolphe and Joseph Eugene Schneider, took over the Le Creusot foundry. They were real pioneers back then in iron manufacturing. Think coal, steam power, classic first industrial revolution stuff, setting the stage for heavy industry.
And from that beginning, what gets me is how they just kept changing, adapting through every big industrial shift. So 19th century, steelworks, but also dipping their toes into electricity. I saw they were at that first big electricity expo in Paris in 1881. And kind of surprisingly, a major weapons maker in Europe by 1871.
Wow.
Yeah, incredible diversification early on. They really have foresight. And that adaptability it carried them into the second industrial revolution, too, early 20th century. As things shifted away from just coal and steam, they moved smartly into electrotechnical gear. That alliance with Westinghouse in 1929, Le Matériel Electrique Schneider Westinghouse, that was big. And then crucially, after World War II, around 1949, they made a conscious choice. Pivot away from weapons entirely. They focused instead on rebuilding Europe's infrastructure, developing things like power rectifiers in the 50s, really essential stuff. Then the third industrial revolution hits, mid to late 20th century. Control, automation. This feels like where modern Schneider really started to take shape. Those acquisitions they made were key, weren't they? Merlin-Durand in 75, big in electrical distribution.
Yeah.
Then Telemecanique in 88, Square D in 91, Modicon in 97.
Absolutely key. And not random at all. Very deliberate moves, each one built on the last, cementing their focus on electrical distribution and industrial automation. It basically laid all the groundwork for them to embrace digital transformation later on, positioned them perfectly, building the sort of nervous system for modern industry and energy.
Right. And that constant evolution, that adaptability, it brings them right up to the edge of the fourth industrial revolution. Diving deep into digital transformation, energy management, automation, like their EcoStruxure platform, it really shows that long view managing energy for our digital world, especially in places like enterprise data centers.
Okay, let's shift gears now. Let's talk APC. For so many people, that name just is power protection for IT. And did you know this year is actually the 40th anniversary of APC's first UPS? 40 years. That's kind of amazing for tech we rely on daily in data centers.
It really is a milestone. APC, American Power Conversion Corporation, founded back in 81. 3 engineers from MIT. They were actually looking at solar electricity first. But then around 84, they pivoted, saw the growing need for power protection, specifically for PCs. That was the crucial shift. That decision really put them on the path to becoming leaders in power management for, what became modern IT infrastructure, including enterprise data centers. And right after that pivot, they started rolling out tech that's now just standard, essential in enterprise data centers. That first UPS, the 450 AT plus FO in 86. And just to clarify for everyone, a UPS, an uninterruptible power supply, it's not just a battery backup. It kicks in almost instantly during an outage. It protects your critical IT gear, servers, storage, everything from power flickers, surges, brownouts, gives you time for generators to start or for a safe shutdown. It's that vital safety net.
Exactly, the first line of defense. And then in 89, they brought out PowerShoot software. That was a real game changer. Why? Because it allowed for graceful shutdowns during outages.
Yeah.
But maybe more importantly, it could automatically and in sequence reboot equipment when power came back. No human needed.
which is huge for operations. Cuts down on those costly truck rolls, sending techs out just to flip switches after an outage. Saves time, saves money. Then the smart UPS line in 1990. That became the benchmark, right? Over 20 million sold, I think. Plus user replaceable batteries, web management, making UPS tech easier for enterprise data centers to manage.
Yeah, the smart UPS was iconic. But they didn't stop innovating. They pushed into modular designs too. Remember the Matrix UPS, industry's first modular UPS, and later Symmetra Power Array. These were huge because they brought redundancy, scalability, easy servicing all into one box. Absolutely critical features for growing enterprise data centers. They also branched out, residential tech, DC power for telecom gear, and very importantly, they started developing precision cooling for IT spaces themselves.
Right, so that innovation path led them to think bigger. Power structure in 2002, then infrastructure in 2003. That wasn't just a product line, was it? It was more like an integrated system, power, cooling, racks, management software, services all bundled together as a cohesive solution designed specifically for environments like enterprise data centers. They even bought NetBots in 2005 to add physical security monitoring, really aiming for that total solution.
Okay, so we have these two amazing stories running in parallel. Schneider, the industrial and electrical giant, APC, the IT power protection leader. Then 2007 happens. Schneider Electric acquires APC. What did that mean? Why bring these two together, especially for enterprise data centers?
Well, that acquisition, it was really strategic. It created this unified powerhouse. Think about it. Schneider dominated the gray space.
Yeah, the electrical rooms,
Yes.
big switchgear breakers, power distribution,
Yeah.
the heavy-duty stuff. Exactly. And APC, they own the white space, the actual IT room. Servers, racks, UPSs, right next to the IT load. So the merger brought those two worlds together. Suddenly you had one company that could provide a complete end-to-end solution, from the utility feed right down to the server plug.
That must have been huge for customers, especially building or upgrading enterprise data centers, getting everything high voltage gear down to rack PDUs from one vendor, plus access to reference designs, integrated software like EcoStruxure managing power, cooling, the IT room, all connected to cloud analytics. It simplifies things massively.
It really did. Simplify design, deployment, operations.
Yeah.
And they didn't stop there with integration. In 2010, Schneider strengthened his cooling side even more by acquiring Uniflare. They're an Italian company, specialists in precision cooling. This was critical because power densities in enterprise data centers were just climbing and climbing. Efficient, reliable cooling became absolutely non-negotiable.
And that acquisition, that focus on cooling, brings us right to the heart of today's deep dive. How do these combined Schneider Electric and APC forces, with Uniflare in the mix, tackle the heat challenge in enterprise data centers? Because in these facilities, cooling isn't just about comfort, is it? It's survival. High-density servers, especially with AI and machine learning workloads exploding, they generate incredible heat. Getting cooling right is absolutely paramount. Prevents damage, ensures uptime, protects the data.
Paramount is the right word. Let's walk through some of the main cooling strategies used in enterprise data centers. Each has its place. First up, in-row cooling solutions. As the name suggests, these units sit right in the row alongside the server racks. The idea is to cool the equipment right where the heat is being produced. It's a very targeted approach.
Okay, so targeted cooling. What's the big advantage there for an enterprise data center? Efficiency.
Exactly. The key benefit is it minimizes hot and cold air mixing. That boosts efficiency significantly. Ideal for small to medium enterprise data centers or zones with really high rack densities where heat is super concentrated. These units come in various capacities, typically water-chilled or direct expansion DX options. The DX ones often use R410A refrigerant. That's just a common gas used in AC systems to move heat around.
Got it. In-row for targeted efficiency. What's next?
Next is perimeter cooling, sometimes just called room cooling. Unlike in-row, these are bigger units, often placed around the perimeter of the room. They work by cooling the entire data center space, circulating conditioned air throughout the whole room.
So a broader approach, cooling the whole environment, but still precise enough for a data center.
That's the idea. It's generally better suited for medium to large enterprise data center facilities. Offers more flexibility and airflow distribution across the room. These systems typically have higher cooling capacities, suitable for larger spaces, even with high densities spread out. And like in-row, they come in DX using R410A or water-chilled versions, depending on the facility's setup.
Okay, so in-row for targeted, perimeter for room level. What else?
Then you have the smaller, more localized solutions, rack, roof, wall, or backpack cooling. These are compact units designed for specific spots or smaller spaces within the larger enterprise data center ecosystem.
Ah, so maybe not for the main data hall, but for, like, network closets or edge computing pods deployed within the enterprise network.
Precisely. Perfect for micro data centers, edge locations, or specific high heat racks where you need supplemental cooling without cooling the whole room or row. Rack-mounted units cool just that one rack. Roof or wall units save floor space in smaller IT closets or rooms. They offer lower capacities, focused cooling, often using DX with R410A right where you need it.
Makes sense. Different tools for different jobs. And looking ahead, especially with AI generating so much heat, Schneider Electric's pushing further, right? I've seen things like their prefabricated modular EcoStruxure pod data centers designed for extreme power densities. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, extreme power density basically means packing way more computing power and therefore way more heat generation into the same physical space. Big pods pulling a megawatt or even more power. So these new solutions have to incorporate much more advanced thermal management. We're talking liquid cooling becoming more common, where liquid directly cools the hot components like CPUs and GPUs, much more efficient for intense heat loads. They also integrate things like high-power busway distribution, enhanced racks designed for heavy loads and complex cabling, even supporting specialized AI hardware architectures like NVIDIA's MGX. That focus on liquid cooling especially is going to be critical for managing these next-gen AI servers that just pump out incredible amounts of heat.
And it's not just about handling the heat, but doing it responsibly, right? Sustainability is a huge factor now.
Absolutely. Schneider Electric is really focusing on efficiency across the board, reducing the environmental footprint. That means using recycled and recyclable materials in their products, promoting things like high-efficiency UPS modes, and pushing for lithium-ion batteries in their UPS systems. Li-ion lasts longer, has a smaller footprint, and helps with decarbonization efforts, which aligns with what modern, responsible enterprise data centers are striving for.
What a journey, really. From 19th century foundries making iron and MIT engineers tinkering with power supplies, all the way to today's incredibly complex integrated systems using liquid cooling for giant AI clusters. It's so clear how Schneider Electric and APC now together are really shaping how we build and run these critical enterprise data centers. And well, that wraps up our deep dive for today here on the Whitespace Podcast.
Thinking about all this development, it does leave you with a question. As AI just keeps accelerating, demanding more and more power and generating more heat, what are the next surprising challenges we haven't even thought of yet for data center cooling? And how do you think innovation will have to adapt again? Something to mull over.
That is a fantastic thought to end on. Definitely food for thought. Thank you all so much for tuning in, for your continued support. It truly means the world to us and helps the Whitespace Piso Blanco podcast keep growing. Thanks for joining this exploration. And one final thank you to our wonderful sponsors, Series Tech and Noxtel. Remember to check out their links in the description for more info. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep listening to the Whitespace Podcast.